The joy of the Lord will be my strength. I will not falter, I will not faint. He is my shepherd, I am not afraid. The joy of the Lord is my strength. The joy of the Lord, the joy of the Lord, the joy of the Lord is my strength. The joy of the Lord, the joy of the Lord, the joy of the Lord is my strength. The joy of the Lord will be my strength. He will uphold me all of my days. I am surrounded by mercy and grace. The joy of the Lord is my strength. The joy of the Lord, the joy of the Lord, the joy of the Lord is my strength. The joy of the Lord, the joy of the Lord, the joy of the Lord is my strength. The joy of the Lord will be my strength. I will not waver, walking by faith. He will be strong to deliver me safe. The joy of the Lord is my strength. The joy of the Lord, the joy of the Lord, the joy of the Lord is my strength. The joy of the Lord, the joy of the Lord, the joy of the Lord is my strength. The joy of the Lord, the joy of the Lord, the joy of the Lord is my strength. The joy of the Lord, the joy of the Lord, the joy of the Lord is my strength.
Good evening, church. Welcome back again to our Wednesday night gathering. We're going to use this the next 30 minutes or so to share with you some important parts and important elements of our life group ministry. We're starting to get back together. We started with our first gathering on Sunday, and we anticipate rolling out slowly some other gatherings. And one of those will eventually become our life group leaders or life group ministry. And so what we thought we would do this evening is to share with you some important elements and concepts about our life group ministry. And some of those will cover leadership in our life groups, some elements of healthy life groups, some resources for our life groups. And so what we want to do is we want to use the next few moments just to plant some seeds into what our life group ministry is like and what we anticipate and desire for our life groups. And so sit back and enjoy the next few minutes as we look at healthy life groups and how they evolve through your participation and your commitment to growing relationships and being involved in community. Blessings, church. Enjoy the next few minutes.
Hey everybody, and welcome to LGT, where we're going to break down and yet we're even going to debate everything that you need to know about being a life group leader. My name's Jonathan, and with me as always through this series is Tony.
Thanks, John. Well, we got a lot of people that are interested in being life group leaders, as well as a ton of people trying to jump into life groups for the very first time.
That's right, and you know, with so much activity going on around life groups, we've got to dive right into the number one question that you're asking about life groups, and that simply is, what is a life group? And from my perspective, it's pretty simple. A life group is a small group of diverse, like-minded individuals that are centered around a common cause.
So, where'd you get that definition?
What do you mean?
The definition that you gave, would you just read a bunch of Webster's or something?
Oh, come on now. That's just how I always describe it.
Here, it's not that simple. Life groups are complex. They're very different in nature. And so if we're really going to look at a definition of what a life group is, we're going to have to use the Bible. We can't just use dictionaries. You know, it's weird. But the Bible really talks about life groups. See, from the early onset of the church, that's primarily who made up the church, was life groups living together, just living life in homes. And so we find in Acts chapter 2, really the onset of the church began with people doing community together in homes called life groups. It was the backbone of the early church. For hundreds of years, that's all the church consisted of. And today, it's no different. See, life groups are the backbone of the church. And so that's why they're so important to us.
Okay, Tony, I got to pause you just for 1 second. Because I'm just soak in this moment, because it probably isn't going to happen again for the whole video, but well said. Well stated.
Well, I tell you what, Johan, I'm going to give you a chance to redeem yourself on this next question. So a lot of concern is that life groups aren't healthy. There's a lot of them that aren't healthy. And so the common question is, what are some elements that make up a healthy life group?
Well, I'm really glad you asked. That's actually a really easy question to answer, because there's two things in my mind that make up a healthy life group. The first one is relationships. Relationships is everything when it comes to a life group. Having those healthy, meaningful relationships is really what creates a family-like atmosphere in your life group. It's what keeps bringing you back week after week after week. It's the relationship. It's what we're wired for. So relationship is number one. Number two is growth. You're not moving, you're not doing anything if your group is not growing. Not just as a group, but if you have a group of individuals who are growing in all areas of their life, spiritually, physically, emotionally, you see that growth, you got a healthy group. The health of the individual means a healthy group. So relationships and growth.
So I completely agree with you. You're saying healthy relationships, you got to build number one.
Absolutely.
You got to grow your group number two. But I think you're leaving out a vital part, which is community change. So you got to break through the four walls of your house and your group to really make an impact outside in your community with your small group. That's how you're going to develop a healthy life group.
I agree with that. And there's one other interesting aspect that that comes to mind whenever I think about impacting your community. And it's actually, we see a lot of our groups experiencing this right now and what we're in the midst of. And that's understanding a sense of brokenness. Whenever you enter into relationship with your community, whenever you're seeking to do good in your community, understanding that we're all broken, that we all have a sense of mutual brokenness, and that we all need each other is essential to doing community development the right way.
That's right, John. It's so funny that you mention that, because I've seen one of the biggest fumbles I've ever seen through this life group, and I wanted to share this experience with you because it's brilliant. You talk about brokenness. So let's go to the video. As you can see, the Taylor group's about to have dinner together. John, it looks like it's Mexican food night at the Taylor's life group.
My absolute favorite. Wish I was there right now.
So the action's starting to pick up pace. Troy's almost at the finish line until fumble! Let's see that in slow motion one more time. Right here, as he takes the handoff, everything's going well, and he had no idea about the footstool. There's one nasty fall as it rains tortilla chips. So much for the Taylors south of the border night.
Now that was a fumble. And it's these moments like this, these really wild, lighthearted moments that make life groups so fun. You know, and all the life groups I've been a part of that I help lead, it's those moments that make life groups awesome. It's those funny moments that really allow a group to bond and unite together. It's awesome.
That's right. Well, let's go ahead and jump back into the topic as we wrap up this first session. Talk about what kind of life groups are there?
Well, that's, again, another really easy question from my perspective. There's really a wide variety of kinds of life groups that are out there. There's life groups for men, for women, for singles, for marrieds. There's life groups that are centered around a real specific topic like photography or skateboarding or biking. And then there's life groups that are really open for just about anybody to get involved with.
Thank you for that wonderful thought. Let's go ahead and just sum it up this way. You can wrap all of those different kinds of life groups into three types of groups. The first one is long-term groups. Long-term groups are what me and my wife have. We have a group of friends that we don't see an end in sight. We're going to hang out forever. So we might study, devotionals, or we might study different books of the Bible, or we might do different kinds of study all along. But really the hope is that we're going to stay together long-term. So the second kind is short-term groups. Short-term groups are based on studies. They might just be around for a couple of months or a few weeks. while a study is going, and then the group might split. And then the third and final group is multiplying groups. We always want to think about continuing to build new groups. And so multiplying groups are perfect for this. So it's going to be people who are together for a while, but the hope is that they're going to split off and develop more groups as the group continues to grow. They're going to split off and build more and more different life groups.
So you're saying we got 3 different groups that we're after?
3 different groups that we're summoning all up.
Well said. Well, we're running short on time, so we definitely want to wrap up this session. And we're going to wrap up with a really specific question here that we have coming in, and that is talking about what is the most essential part of a healthy life group. And if you're asking me again, the strength of a life group is dependent on the strength of the leader. It's all about leadership. The strength of the life group is all dependent on the strength of the leader. Growing a healthy life group starts with a healthy leader.
Well, John, I agree with you. See, life group leaders are the backbone of our church. They're the heartbeat. They are what makes our church function. Just like the disciples, Jesus empowered these guys to go out and lead people to find Jesus for themselves. That's exactly what we're doing for life group leaders. We empower them. Their vision for their life group is God-inspiring. It's what is going to lead our church to greatness.
That's right. And I hope you guys paid attention to what Tony said there, because he brought up a really great point. You guys are the ones that actually drive the vision. You're the backbone behind the church. You're the pace setters for the vision that we bring in, we build up, we train, and we send out. And leaders embody this vision because really they're the result of the church purpose, and God has chosen them to play a vital role in the vision of their groups.
That's right, Jonathan. See, what you need to know is life group leaders are agents of change. Life change starts on the weekend. When we have a message and somebody raises their hand to accept Christ, it starts there. But growth continues in a life group setting, and it's mainly because of a life group leader and their heart for Christ. One of the biggest things I've learned being a life group leader is that change in my heart happens when I have to lead a group of people that are brand new in their relationship with Jesus, when they're trying to find Christ on their own. I grow in myself. So you guys are the agents of change that we need as we're going to continue to grow our church.
Sure. And I think it's really important to just kind of summarize this in one word. I think there's one word that just really breaks it down really well. And that one word is vision. Proverbs 29:18, it simply says, where there is no vision, the people perish. Now, I don't think that if you don't have vision for your group, you're actually going to die. I don't think that's what he's trying to say. But I do think the actual life, the energy behind the life group, probably will fizzle out. It will die. It's that vision that people latch onto that keep bringing them back week after week after week. It's vision. You got to have vision for where you're going, because without it, the group's going to perish. Well, on that note, we've actually got to take a moment and pause and end out this segment because we're running. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back to LGT. We're so excited you are joining us for segment 2. My name's Jonathan, and with me again is Tony. This segment, we're actually going to dive right in to the heart of life groups, and that are the all-stars of life groups, which are you, our life groups leaders.
Absolutely. That's exactly who I want on my team, is you guys who are good at this. And as a matter of fact, if you're not any good at this, I really don't want you on my team. So.
Well, I'll tell you what, this segment is centered around all about what it takes for you as a life group leader to be successful in your role. So Tony, I'm going to just ask you, from your perspective, in all the life groups you've been a part of, the life groups you've helped start, life groups you've helped lead, what does it take for these guys to be successful?
Well, it starts with vision. You know, like we said, without a vision, the people end up perishing. Groups end up falling apart because they just don't know where they're going to go. And so no matter if it's a big vision or a small one, you got to start with something in mind, something that just sets your group apart, a vision statement, a vision about your group.
Sure, and I agree with that, but I think you are being a little bit too vague here. I think what we really want to equip these guys with is really some tangible things, some tangible steps they can do to be successful. And in my mind, that's centered around questions. You've got to answer some questions for yourself that are going to help establish a vision for you as a life groups leader. And there's 3 questions that come to my mind that every life groups leader has to answer. The first question is this: what kind of life group do you want to lead? What do you want to look like? You had mentioned earlier in our last segment, there's 3 different kinds of life groups. Well, what kind of life group do you want to lead? And then from that, sort of a subset, is what kind of people do you want to be a part of that life group? So what kind of life group do you want to lead? The second is also really essential, and that's what do you want your group to be centered around? What's the thing that you're going to do that's going to help your life group grow? Is it a book? Is it a message series? Is this an activity? You got to have something that people expect when they come to your life group. They have to have expectations that are there so they know what to bring each and every time you meet. So it's what kind of group, what kind of content you want to be centered around, and third, which actually might be a little bit difficult, is this. You have to have sort of an exit strategy. If we're talking about growth, if we're talking about continually moving forward, there's going to come a point where the group gets too big, where it's no longer a small group. You're actually going to have a big group. And so you have to actually have a strategy for how you want that group to separate at some point and start more groups. So it comes down to what kind of group you want to lead, the content you want to be centered around, what activity, what book, what message series, what do you want your life group to be about, and having an exit strategy.
Man, that was brilliant.
Well,
Man, you absolutely brought the boom sauce. I like it.
Hey, enough of that. We got to actually dive in. We got a lot more topics to cover. In fact, the next thing we're going to talk about is a term I'm calling jumping in. As a life group leader, it's rare that you're ever going to find yourself with all the answers. In fact, I would almost say you're never going to find yourself with all the answers. But it's important to not let that hinder you from being involved with your life group. You've got to jump in. Right. You've got to take that step, because it's through jumping in, it's through being active in your life group that you actually learn, that you actually take those steps that push your life group forward. So you've got to be active in the game.
Yeah, and after you jump in the game, you got to learn something we call triggers. The triggers are what's going to help you as you continue to grow your group. A lot of you are going to just be sitting around and be like, I don't have any of my friends, or there's nobody in my group. I'm just all alone, all this kind of stuff. Well, there's strategic times that you're going to be able to pull people in. So they're called triggers. Triggers are things like every time we start a new series at our church, it's a great indicator that there's going to be some new curriculum that's going to come out to help you in your life group. Maybe people are interested in getting involved. Also, other times, strategic tools that come out. Maybe we're going to do a push on the weekend where we're going to specifically highlight life groups. You know, that's a trigger for you to go out and seek people who are interested in a group.
Sure, because most often when those new materials come out or those new series start, people are actually finding themselves that they want to take that teaching further. I think that's a really good point, but I also think you can't sit around and you can't wait for those triggers to happen. You have to actually be a trigger yourself. You've got to have almost a laser vision for people that are hungry to be a part of your life group. A really easy way to do that is just in the lobby of an experience. There's people that are coming in and out, and people are more often to accept a personal invitation than they are just to go to a life group uninvited.
Juan, that's a great point. See, I love, when I was looking for people to insert into my life group, I had a simple rule. I would hang out 10 minutes before an experience or 10 minutes after the experience, and collectively I had 20 minutes of time where I didn't have to give up time during my week just to cold call people and things like that. I had time in the lobby when I was going to church to find people specifically interested in my own group.
That's actually a really good point you bring up. All you're saying is it just takes 20 minutes of your time to get a really big return on your investment. That doesn't seem like too much. 20 minutes every week, really high return. Great point.
Right. You know, another great idea is Facebook. You know, you can create a Facebook page specifically for your own life group. That way, if people are looking for information about a group, they can look on yours and find stuff. You can actually attach that stuff to our own campus Facebook page. That way, if people are looking for a group, it's real easy to get information on, social media, and people are connected.
Well, that's great. We've talked about a lot of things that you can do as a life groups leader on your own to really be successful, but there's actually some things that you need to do that are required, that are really going to help release your full growth potential. The first one is called the Kazone Experience. This is a great learning tool that you can use to discover God's specific vision for your life. We talked earlier about finding a vision for your life group. Well, having your own personal vision is just as important. In fact, the more you can align the vision of your life group with your own personal vision, I believe you can actually be more successful. So the Kazone experience, great for discovering God's specific vision for your life. The second one is a resource we call Developing Others Through Coaching. Now, this is a really unique perspective and a really unique take on how to release others' growth potential. And it's done simply by asking the right questions. By asking the right questions, you actually help them own their own growth development, because oftentimes the ideas come from them. You're just asking the questions. You're not mentoring. You're not doing anything like that. You're just coaching. You're asking the right questions.
That's great stuff. But Frank, I think you're leaving out a really important point, and that's the restore experience. See, in an earlier segment, we had mentioned talking about being an integral part in restoring your community and making that a part of your group. And so one of the ways we can do that is an experience called Restore. And really, we've created a kit for you to explore in your own life group, just how you can be a part of helping the right way in your own community towards restoration.
Sure, and restoration is so key. In fact, we've got a clip coming up that I just have to share. It's a group that needed some major restoration in their own group. It's actually comes from the Jones Life Group, and on this specific night, they've been in sort of going through some marriage curriculum. Great discussion, great content, great growth happening from it. But on this specific night, we actually had a major TMI violation. In fact, it's so good, we just have to check it out. Let's go to the clip right now. Okay, it looks like we're entering into the group's discussion time as Martin and Pam Jones are leading their group through some questions based on the video they just watched. Let's listen in on the action right now.
So we just watched the video where he talked about the importance of keeping the fire burning in our marriage. So what are some things that you guys do to keep the fire burning in your marriages?
We do a date night like once a month, try to get some time away from the kids.
That's great. I think date nights are a great way to keep the fire burning.
Anyone else? Any other examples?
We have no problem keeping the fire alive in our marriage. One way that I like to drive him crazy is...
Whoa! Hold the train on that one. That is definitely a TMI violation. And here's why it's a good idea to be mindful of what you share. Look at David's reaction when Cindy begins to share her comment. The moment Cindy starts to share about her fire-burning moment, he seems to have forgotten all about his wife, and his body language shows he is very intent on hearing more from Cindy and her inferno antics. Now that may go in our inappropriate comment Hall of Fame, if I do say so myself. Craziness going on there, but you know what? Martin did a great job, the leader of that group, of shutting down Cindy's comment and getting us right back onto an appropriate track in the conversation. That is leadership at its finest.
That's right. And you're going to have to realize that stuff like this is going to go on all the time. And as a life group leader, you're going to have to be ready for anything, inappropriate conversations, even people who dominate a life group. So you are going to have to be ready for anything.
And you know what? That transition is actually really great into our next point, and that's something that we call being there. Now, why are we just calling it being there? Well, it's because really that's as simple as it gets. As a life group leader, you've got to just be there for your life group. And we talked earlier about getting in the game, and you know, being in the game, you actually learn from your experiences, but being in the game actually means you're participating in your life group and in the growth. And that doesn't just happen when you start your life group or the one time a week that your life group might meet. You as a leader have got to be there all the time.
That's right, John, and I completely agree. And one of the ways that you can help your life group out the most is by simply taking a hold of your own spiritual development and making sure that's vibrant. If your relationship with Jesus is top-notch, it's going to pour out into the health of your group. And everybody's going to be able to experience and be encouraged by the leader's approach to Jesus. If you're, kind of Debbie Downer and you really don't like Jesus, you don't have a reason to follow Jesus, don't expect anybody to follow him either. And so just keep that in mind. You're responsible for your development. So, man, make sure your spiritual life with Jesus is top-notch and it's right there. And remember this, as our groups continue to grow, there's going to be times where you need a break. There's going to be times where you need just to step out for a week. Make sure you are developing someone to take your group for you. If your group continues to grow, you're going to need someone to break off a section of your group and to really reproduce yourself. And so that's another way that you can continue to maintain a healthy life group is just by having someone to reproduce your own self.
So what you're saying actually is that by being there, you don't have to be the one being there all the time. You can actually have other people be there for you by development.
Right.
Right. That's great. I think there's also another point I'd just like to add on. I know we're adding on a lot of points, but this one I think is vital, and we'd be ignorant to skip over it. And that's being there for your group in times of crisis. It's inevitable. Those moments of crisis are going to happen. We're going to have sickness. We're going to have a death in the family. We're going to have, parenting issues. Those times of crisis are going to happen. And the most important thing you can do as a leader of your group is by being there for the members of your group in those moments of crisis. There's a really great quote about this, and I think it pertains really well to it, and it's, people don't really care about how much you know until they know about how much you care. That moment of crisis is the perfect time to show someone how much you care by being there for them.
Well, I can't argue with that thought. So one final piece of advice to help you as a life group leader is this. You're responsible for your own development. The key is going to be for you to remain open and honest and being willing to fail. There's going to be times that you don't know how to succeed. You don't know how to manufacture greatness in a life group. And the truth is, it's just going to take time. You're going to have to try some things, and you might be great at them. They might work, but they might not. Don't get discouraged. Keep pressing forward. The best way to learn and to be a better life group leader is through experiences, through good experiences, through bad experiences. You're going to become and adapt to such a better life group leader over time. So stick it out, and remember, you're responsible for your development.
Sure, and 2 points to add on to that. One is just this. We've mentioned a lot of great tools and resources that are out there, some that are required, some that aren't, but really maximize that. There are tons of resources out there for you to really engage and develop yourself as a leader. And the second is this. It's kind of a tough one. It's feedback. Feedback is something that you as a leader have to do. It sometimes feels like being criticized, I think, at times, but as a leader, the more feedback, the more mirrors you can have. And by mirrors, I mean people that are speaking into your life, that are sharing and revealing things about you that you may know or you may not know, and helping you get better is essential to your growth as a leader. So feedback and continue to use resources, both of them are huge.
That was terrible.
Come on now. That wasn't that bad.
Well, you wanted some feedback. I was just giving it to
Okay,
you.
but there's a difference.
It's not like you listened to my feedback before, but whatever.
There's a difference between feedback and constructive feedback. And with that, we're out of time for this segment, but we have... Hey everybody, welcome back to LGT as we are breaking down everything you need to know to be a successful life groups leader. Again, I'm Jonathan, and right by my side is Tony. Let's dive right into this third session. We've got a lot of great content we're going to talk about today, and first and foremost, I want to talk about those people that we can have around us to help us be successful as life group leaders. Tony, why don't you tell me a little bit about the people you've had around you that have made you successful?
So Jonathan, for me, it was that group of new leaders. Together, we went to training together and got introduced to people that were starting groups just like myself. And so since then, I've stayed connected with them. So that's my advice to you. Stay connected with those people that go to the training with you, because they're really in your same boat. They're going to be starting with you, and over the first couple of months, they're going to experience a lot of the same things as you. So the key is get their phone number, stay connected to them, contact them, see how they're doing, bounce ideas off of each other, things like that. That's very helpful.
So you're talking specifically about like-minded people same stage of life, going through the same thing, right?
Absolutely.
All right, that sounds awesome, but I think there's another group of people that we can actually tap into as well, and those are what we call community leaders. You see, at each campus, you actually have a resource to you of people called community leaders. Now, these people have actually been specifically trained and developed in helping you succeed as a leader. In the same way we've talked about you needing to be there for your life group, these are people specifically placed to be there for you, people that are there to help you succeed.
That's exactly right, Jonathan. And so we've created this leadership structure specifically for you. In a sense, these people are there to coach you. And so as you coach your life group, these are essentially just the coaches of coaches. They're your coach. They're there for you to grow, to develop, to really play off of, to see things that work and see things that don't work, to ask them questions and use them as a resource.
That's great. I think that's a really great point. And if we're going to even transition, I think there's a third group of people that we really need to tap into, and those are existing life groups leaders. Tony mentioned earlier about life group leaders that have gone through the same training and maybe at the same stage that you are, but there's a whole host of life group leaders that have been doing this for years and years and years and have really a lot of experience under their belt, a lot of valuable experience that you can pull from. So it might be identifying one of those leaders and asking them to be a mentor, asking them to be one of those people that pour into you, and identifying people that maybe do a similar life group to you would even be a good option, or whatever you want. But I do think that there are a whole bunch of people that have a lot of experience that we can learn from, that we can gain from that experience.
That's right. See, that's a lot of great stuff. I think both of us, we're really missing a key question, and that is, where do I find these people to connect with? Where do I find common life group leaders that I can ask questions and things like that? So here's the answer. Occasionally, from time to time, there's going to be events that gather all these life group leaders together. Go to them, engage in them, seek them out, because these are the places where you're going to find friends. You're going to find people to connect with, to bounce your ideas off of, and really help you as you continue to grow your life group.
Sure. So there's really, just to recap, there's 3 areas of people that we can learn from. Those are those life group leaders that are going through the same stages that we're at. There are community leaders, and there are life group leaders that have done this for years and years. 3 great resources that you can actually utilize. And let's actually transition to our next topic that will carry us out for the remainder of the show, really, and that's the resources that are available to you. Not just the people, but the actual resources that are available to you.
Here's what's great for life group leaders. There are a ton of great resources out there. One in particular is resources.lifechurch.tv. Write it down, bookmark it, whatever you need to do. This is your one-stop shop for all of those resources you're going to need to lead a life group.
That's right. We've talked a lot actually today about all the different resources and previous segments too that you can utilize. Actually, resources.lifechurch.tv is really the place that you can go to access all of those resources. It's kind of like a general store for resources, if you want to think about it that way. That really is a great place to land. In fact, we actually have Emily, who's live in the Digerati offices of lifechurch.tv. Digerati is our digital hub for everything here at Life Church. And so let's go right now to Emily as she is there live in our Digerati offices. Hey, Emily.
Thanks, Jonathan. I'm here live in the Digerati offices as they are hard at work making resources become easily available to life group leaders on resources.lifechurch.tv.
Hey, Emily, I know they have a lot going on there as they definitely look very hard at work. Can you tell me what kind of resources are the Digerati team working on currently uploading to resources.lifechurch.tv?
Well, Jonathan, right now they're uploading resources to help life group leaders be successful. For example, there's PDF documents with tips for new life group leaders to help them find answers to common questions and challenges they may encounter. There are also links to books that will help them own their own development and growth.
Hey, Emily, Tony here. So I have a question. Is Digerati developing teaching content? Say a leader wanted to teach some new things in their life group. Is that something that Digerati is creating?
Yeah, Tony, that actually is something that Digerati is hard at work at. Resources.lifechurch.tv is the place for life group leaders to go every week to download the Talk It Over study guide that will help them lead their life group through discussion that corresponds with that weekend's message. The resources site is also the place to go to get book discussions, videos, and study guides to help develop your Kazone. And if you might remember, that Kazone includes your relationship with God, your relationship with others, your work life, your financial life, and your physical life.
Well, it sounds like the life group leaders you guys need to really bookmark the resources.lifechurch.tv. As you can see, there's continual stream of resources being uploaded and updated all of the time. Emily, I'm really curious to know one other thing. I'm curious about the Kazone resources there. Can you tell me a little bit about what Digerati is doing currently with the Kazone experience?
I'm so glad you asked, Jonathan, because Digerati has developed a website called Kazone.com that has all the tools that a life group leader needs to facilitate the Kazone experience right within their life group. So if you're a life group leader, you should check out Kazone.com right away. That's all I have here at the Digerati offices today, so I'll throw it back to you, Jonathan and Tony.
Hey, Emily, thanks for that great report. A lot of exciting things going on there. And Tony, it sounds like from resources.lifechurch.tv and kazone.com, between those two, leaders really have everything they need to be successful today.
Absolutely. And so I wanted to remind people of a couple of more options that can help, and they're looking for resources. One is their campus Facebook page. There's always going to be some great information about leading life groups and information that you're going to need, upcoming events and things like that, as well as findalifegroup.tv is a great resource because people are always going to be pointed to that when they're looking for a life group to find. So that's what they're going to go.
Great place to go and recruit, sounds like. Well, I think there's two other things that we need to cover right before we close up, and I'll say this. We've talked about it a lot. We've given you a lot of resources. We've given you a lot of tools, a lot of information. But most importantly, those tools aren't going to make a great life group. It's up to you. You've got to own it. You've got to invest the time. You've got to invest in yourself to develop as a leader, to develop your life group. These tools are just that. They're tools to help you shape what your life group is about. So you've got to own it. The investment you put in is all about the return you're going to get. Invest, invest, invest. Be engaged with it. And secondly, I don't know how we could ever miss this, but it's always make Christ, make God the center. Look to him for wisdom. Look to him to be the point of where you draw your energy, of where you get your vision from. As he's the one that actually gave you the desire to start that life group, he's also going to be the one to sustain you through these times as you walk through with that life group.
That's exactly right, Jonathan, and I completely agree. And you got to know this. You are responsible for the spiritual health of this life group that you're starting, and it starts with you. If you're not connected with Jesus on a regular basis, your group's not going to be connected either. They always say things like, you work out of the overflow of your heart.
Sure.
If God's working in your life, the overflow is going to be inspiring others to do the same in their own life. And if it's nothing inspiring, people are going to end up leaving. They're end up going to fall away. And your life group is not going to be what you intended and what God set you out to start in the first place. And so you're responsible for your spiritual relationship with Jesus. Make sure it's thriving and growing. And if it's not, man, pick it back up. Find some people to encourage you. Find some people to help you get back to that spot where you can lead your life group successful.
Excellent advice. Excellent advice. In fact, I'd say it's so good. That's a great place to end right there. So thank you guys so much for joining us on LGT. We've been honored to be here with you throughout all three of these segments. Again, I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Tony.
And good luck as you embark in this incredible and exciting journey of being a life group's leader.